Hey folks, it's Nate. Thanks for joining me once again as we look to the horizon, coming to you with a fresh new hairdo, getting ready for spring here. I am in the midst of a much needed break from writing my main stories. I am still working on a couple of collaborations, and I am working on some essays that have a lot of thoughts in them. I have been thinking a lot about the art of writing the past few months, and I have a lot to say about it. I don't want to summarize all that here because I'm saving it for the essays that you will be hopefully reading on my blog in the next couple of weeks. So, when I have one of these breaks where I spend a lot of time thinking more about the art of writing and less about writing something specifically, I find it to be very rejuvenating. In fact, I think some of my best writing is done in these times. And I think that it's important. I think it's important to do the work of writing stories. That's really important. You can't get away from storytelling if you want to be a storyteller. It's a craft that you have to practice every single day, just like a athlete has to be out there on the field every day working on their skills, whether it be passing in football or running also in football. Those kind of skills you have to be sharpening every single day. But just like not everything an athlete does is on the field, some of what they do is in the locker room watching game footage or researching their opponents. For a writer, it is also very important to get that kind of more cerebral downtime research done. And that is what I think the real benefit of writing these essays on the craft is. Now, you don't necessarily have to publish these or shop them around or even share them with a very wide range of people. I think it is important to get some feedback on them. And I think that, like, say, having a writer's group can also serve this function. Someplace where you can meet with some like-minded people and really talk over the ideas behind writing and the craft and what people are saying about it. But all in all, I think there are two camps of people, really. There are people who want all of writing to be this very meticulous, cerebral research stuff. They will write a lot of essays on the craft. They will spend a lot of time breaking down what other people have done. They will spend a lot of time, up to their elbows in the guts of things. And I think that can go too far as well. But people who just write fiction and they write it and they write it and they write it and they don't spend any time, any downtime really analyzing other people's fiction or putting serious thought into what techniques they favor and how to best execute those, or what techniques they dislike and why they dislike them. These people are going to struggle as authors because they are not really putting in time to think about the whys of what they write. And I am of the opinion, which I believe I have said here before, but if I haven't, I am of the opinion that the goal of the author is to provoke responses from readers, be it an emotional response in sympathy and empathy with characters, or excitement in a series of well-described events that are taking place. All of these things are things that the author is trying to create in their audience. And if you're going to try and create something in the audience, you need to look at people who have created that thing and really ask yourself, why were they successful in making this thing happen? Just as an athlete might have to spend a lot of time studying, say, a passing pattern to see why it worked against one team and did not work against another team. Or an athlete might spend a lot of time studying their jumping technique or their landing technique to see what parts of it they really need to shore up in order to execute these things better. And you, as an author, need to do that as well. I think that's the real benefit I get out of writing these essays, because this is where I stop and I analyze techniques, not only my own, but those of others. And there's a lot of really good insight to get from that. For example, I am going to be talking about how stories have gotten created in, say, the Ukrainian situation. And one that I find really fascinating to think about is the ghost of Kiev, or Kiev, depending on who you ask. I have read a lot of military history, and I think I have a take on that particular situation that I haven't heard anyone else mention before, and that is that in the chaos of battle, there are a lot of people who will see the same thing happen from different angles, and they will all report it back to headquarters, and each report will be judged as a separate instance. So it wouldn't surprise me if there was a story if the reality of the Ghost of Kiev is that there was a single pilot in the Ukrainian Air Force who shot down a Russian plane. That's entirely possible. And then several people on the street saw this happen from several different angles. And as the story began to circulate, with different details emphasized depending on who was where and what part of the encounter they saw, people began to assume this was a plane shooting down multiple enemy planes. And that's an interesting thing for a storyteller to think about, because seeing something from a whole bunch of different angles and then having that same instance become a whole plethora of different stories, which are then all assumed to have happened, is not only interesting for you to think about as a storyteller, because you will tell this one story that everyone will see a little bit differently, but also fascinating as a thing to think about when you are crafting events that your characters will then look back on, because all of your characters are going to look back on them with this slightly different perspective, and it may almost seem like a whole series of different events. And thinking about storytelling in that way, and trying to draw examples from real life like that, I think makes your storytelling much richer and gives you a new set of techniques in your tool belt, which you can use to then tell interesting stories. So that kind of analysis is what you really get out of writing, this essay writing, this analysis, this real emphasis on trying to nail down what works and why it works, is why I take this time off to really think about these things. And I hope some of that comes through in the writing I do. Obviously, it's very hard for an author to objectively take the measure of how well or how poorly they are executing on what they try to do. That's why feedback from the audience is so important. And I hope I am doing that. I hope that you guys are really reading and enjoying my attempts to integrate these techniques. And I hope that the essays will also help you think about those techniques as you work to refine your craft as well. So that's what I've got for you today. Essays are coming along. I have one almost finished. I kind of spoiled a little bit of it for you, and I have a couple of others that I have started writing down the basic bullet points for. I am hoping to, as I have in the past, use this essay writing season as an opportunity to get a couple of weeks ahead before I dive into my next project. And right now, I think I am about on schedule to be a week and a half ahead by the time I reach the end of this essay season. We'll see. Sometimes I get really into the essays and they all just barf out all over the place. And I can complete 2 months of essays in 2 weeks. Hopefully we can do something like that, because I have had a month of buffer time in the past, and it's really nice. But, it's hard to gauge how those kind of things will turn out. Anyway, that's what I got for you this week. Hopefully you enjoyed that. There's a like button and a subscribe button down below. You can use those as you see fit, and I'll talk to you later.